the U.S., we have several different areas known for tornadoes. There is, of course, the famed Tornado Alley that accounts for most of this territory. But strangely enough, none of these prone centers include the state of Massachusetts. Hi, I'm Chris May, writer, producer, and host of This Day in Weather History, a podcast now in its second year from the Weather Network in Canada. According to the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, of the roughly 1,250 tornadoes that the United States averages every year, Massachusetts sees only one. So let's find out now what happened back in 2019 on this day in weather history. Within the beautiful and tourist-heavy area of Cape Cod, you will find the communities of Barnstable, Yarmouth, and Harwich. In July 2019, all three were walloped with three separate twisters and each packed wind speeds of up to 110 miles per hour. That's about 177 kilometers per hour. Little perspective. Off the top, I said that the state normally sees only one tornado on the annual U.S. average. But the Cape Cod Peninsula had actually previously only ever seen 3 tornadoes ever in their history. They occurred in 1968, 1977, and, funny enough, just the year prior to this day in weather history, in 2018. Welcome to year 2 of this podcast. Right now, you're listening to the full version of today's story on your favorite podcast provider. But there's also the daily podcast video short. They're shot right here in my podcast recording studio, so you get that perspective. But oftentimes, they will include visuals from that day's event from when it happened in weather history. So after listening to the full story, go check out the podcast video short on television or online anytime at theweathernetwork.com/weather history. So in 2019, it of course had to happen during the peak of tourist season, and of course it had to take the power down with it. This outbreak severely damaged buildings and left 50,000 customers without lights or air conditioning. Remember tourist season? Yeah, that included hotels, B&Bs, restaurants, theaters, museums, everything. The tornadoes carved a path of destruction not only to buildings and trees, it also left some areas too dangerous for people to go into. Again, the region was packed with tourists. As a quick footnote before you jump to conclusions, there were no reports of injuries or deaths. They just sweat a lot and survived without any power for a spell. So just what happened here? Remember the dynamics of what happened in Goderich, Ontario when that town was wiped out by tornadoes? I have an episode on that. Check it out wherever you're listening right now when you get a chance sometime. But first, the same thing happened here. One of the tornadoes began as a water spout. Then it moved onshore and kept itself together and gained a head of steam on land to catapult it to tornado status. We always say that water spouts are normally harmless, but it is always going to be that way unless they maintain strength on land. Then they are a tornado. This is what happened here in Massachusetts when this lumbered ashore near Calamus in Barnstable and traveled a very short way to nearby South Yarmouth. In the end, 2 of the tornadoes were rated with a high-end EF1 rating. And in response, Governor Charlie Baker activated the Massachusetts National Guard to assist in the cleanup and the needs of residents who were affected by this in the Cape Cod communities. So it just goes to show, whether you have dozens or just one tornado in a season, it's all a matter of perspective as to whether or not you have what would equate to an, quote, active season by local standards. And with 3 in one go, this was active en masse this day in weather history. Hey, do you like the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. If you have an idea, go right now to wherever you're listening to me and rate us if you would, please. It's on a 5-star system, and we would love as many stars as you can afford. So rate us, but then also review us. This way we can always stay on top of how you'd like to see the show evolve. Then remember to subscribe to this podcast. Click the subscribe or follow button right there on the very same podcast homepage you're listening on. You'll be immediately reminded that the next day is ready to listen to, and you also have access to every episode in the archives. It dates back to June 1st of 2020, so there is a lot that we got to get caught up on this day in weather history. Tomorrow is July 24th, and we are going to another heavily traveled tourist destination. But for this story, we go back to when it was first discovered, and we uncover how their ancient people used to use the weather as a strategy for not just survival, but for war to fend off invaders. Machu Picchu is an ancient Inca settlement in Peru that is now one of the world's top tourist destinations, and there is a lot to unwrap here, and we are exploring it tomorrow on This Day in Weather History with me, your host, Chris May.